Something recently cracked open in the Middle East, and nobody is calling it what it truly is. Right now, while American officials are going on television claiming total victory over Iran, the Iranian national security apparatus is broadcasting a very different message to the world, not whispered through back channels, not leaked to sympathetic journalists, but out loud, on the record, in translated statements that the American press is almost entirely ignoring. That gap between what Washington is saying and what Tehran is saying is where the actual story exists. And in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to take you through every single piece of it, because what is occurring right now is not a victory lap. It is the beginning of something considerably more deadly than the conflict itself. If you're not subscribed to Daily Brief yet, do so now. Hit that button, because what I'm going to set out for you, the statements, the strikes, the economic repercussions, the threats, this is the type of analysis you will not find compiled anywhere else in one spot. We do the work so you don't have to. Let's go back, not 72 hours farther. Let's go back to the rationale that began all of this. The Trump administration approached this dispute with a hypothesis. The plan was simple: strike a devastating hit early, devastate Iran's leadership, undermine the government's morale, and watch the Islamic Republic fall from within. It was the Venezuela playbook: fast, decisive, over before anybody could form a cohesive reaction. According to evidence from numerous intelligence experts reported in the Washington Post, the plan depended significantly on the notion that targeted assassination of key officials would create a leadership vacuum that could not be filled fast enough to maintain a coordinated military response. That assumption was false. Here's what really happened. The senior leadership of Iran was not annihilated. The Ayatollah was not slain. The governmental structure was not disrupted beyond recovery. And now, from the highest echelons of the Iranian regime, the message flowing back to Washington is the antithesis of submission. This is not Iranian spin. This is not propaganda I'm promoting. I'm showing you precisely what is being said, by whom, and why it matters, because you are not hearing it assembled this way on American television. Announcement number 1. Iran's foreign minister delivered a formal statement explicitly rejecting the White House's definition of the war situation. Foreign Minister Araghchi, and I want to be precise here because the exact wording matters, stated publicly that Iranian President Pezeshkian's expressed openness to de-escalation within the region, contingent on neighboring countries not allowing their airspace, territory, or waters to be used to attack Iran, was, in his words, almost immediately killed by President Trump's misinterpretation of our capabilities, determination, and intent. Read that again. Iran's foreign minister claimed that Iran had offered an opportunity, a conditional opening certainly, but an opening, and that the Trump administration's reaction destroyed it within hours. The statement continued, "If Mr. Trump seeks escalation, it is precisely what our powerful armed forces have long been prepared for, and what he will get. Responsibility for any expansion of Iran's exercise of self-defense would fall solely with the U.S. administration." Then came the statistic that the American financial press should be shouting about, yet mainly is not. The foreign minister claimed bluntly that Trump's week-long military campaign had already cost the U.S. military $100 billion, not considering the economic harm to come when markets reopen. His precise framing: the expense will rise and be directly transmitted to average Americans at petrol stations. $100 billion in just 2 weeks, and petrol prices are already shifting. That's announcement number 1. Now here is where it gets worse. Announcement number 2. Iran's National Security Council leader, Ali Larijani, delivered a broadcast interview, translated and verified, in which he set out in precise terms what Iran plans to do next. Larijani did not talk in diplomatic abstractions. He said, "We're not going to let Donald Trump off the hook. He must pay the price. He murdered our leader and our people. More than 1,000 people have already been slain. We will not let it go unless we react in kind." Stop there. 1,000 civilians. That estimate, consistent across various sources, including satellite photos and congressional intelligence briefings, includes what occurred in Bandar Abbas, when an elementary school was attacked by U.S. military action, killing around 150 children. That occurrence, according to the assertion made above, is being briefed to members of Congress. Larijani went farther. He detailed the American strategic blunder in exact words. He stated the U.S. strategy had two stages. First, assassinate enough Iranian leadership to collapse the political system. Second, watch the masses turn against the Islamic Republic. Americans thought this would be done very quickly, he added. Their strategy was to end the war fiercely but in a short time. But they didn't think Iranians wouldn't let them go. Now they are desperate. What Larijani is describing is not simply bravado. It is a strategic assessment of events that coincides, at least internally, with what has transpired so far. The Islamic Republic has not crumbled, and the people has not risen up. According to research reported by Reuters and Al Jazeera, the attacks instead sparked a surge of nationalist solidarity within Iran, boosting the government's internal position, even among individuals previously hostile of the regime. Trump moved in to undermine the Iranian regime. Instead, he may have rallied portions of the nation behind it. That's announcement number 2. Announcement number 3, and here is where global economics enters fully. The Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed. 20% of the world's crude oil supply travels via that tiny channel. Right now, that movement is badly interrupted. Kuwait Petroleum Corporation, OPEC's fifth largest producer, has announced precautionary cutbacks to oil and refinery production because exports are curtailed. Qatar has allegedly curtailed output as well. 2 fuel stores at Kuwait International Airport were damaged in Iranian drone attacks, creating huge flames visible throughout the complex. The Trump administration's reaction has been to propose Navy escorts for oil tankers. Iran's military reaction came from the Qatam al-Anbiya Air Defense Command. The official said, "We welcome the United States escorting oil tankers through the strait. Iranian soldiers are waiting for the Americans. Entry may be on the surface, but the end will be in the bottom of the Persian Gulf." So the strait is under danger, the U.S. is contemplating escorts, and Iran is publicly threatening of combat at sea. Meanwhile, restrictions on Russian oil have apparently been relaxed in ways that enable more cheap petroleum into India, widely understood as an effort to reduce pricing pressure before domestic political ramifications intensify. It has not stabilized gasoline costs. That's announcement number 3. Now look at the greater area. The Trump administration seems to have anticipated the dispute could be geographically confined. That assumption is now under pressure. Iran's reaction has not been restricted to direct U.S.-Iran interactions. Instead, it has diffused pressure across Gulf governments hosting American infrastructure. Targets have included infrastructure near Dubai, facilities in Kuwait City, and gasoline tanks connected to airport operations. One of the more contentious events is the Iranian Navy vessel Dana, apparently attacked after departing Sri Lanka, where it had participated in a naval event under restricted operating status. Sri Lankan troops rescued surviving crew members. Iran's diplomatic stance to Gulf neighbors has been explicit. Cease enabling U.S. military activities via your land, and assaults stop, continue, and you stay vulnerable. That pressure is already shaping regional politics. Gulf states that spent significantly in portraying themselves as reliable finance centers are now confronting direct security issues. Every drone crossing Gulf airspace ruins that image, and it may be one of the darkest effects of all, not just military escalation, but the loss of the region's economic confidence. He seized their money and then unleashed a conflict that is burning away all they constructed. As reported by Bloomberg, Qatar alone has committed hundreds of billions in U.S. investment projects, and now its airports are under assault. Inside Iraq, where the United States still has troops stationed, parliament members are screaming death to America on the floor of the assembly. The sectarian fault lines that were barely being kept together, Shia, Sunni, and Kurdish, are splitting anew in real time. The Trump administration did not merely initiate a conflict, it destabilized the whole regional infrastructure simultaneously. Here is something that merits special attention. The foreign minister's speech mentioned a paper written by Trump's own National Intelligence Council, reflecting input from all 18 U.S. intelligence organizations, which apparently determined that conflict with Iran was certain to fail. That paper existed before the strike started. Arachi inquired explicitly in his statement, were these warnings conveyed? That question is not rhetorical. It is a public record challenge to the American intelligence and policymaking machinery. It is saying, your own experts warned you this would not work. Someone opted not to listen or chose to disregard it. Meanwhile, on the American side, officials are going on television declaring the United States aims to grab all of Iran's oil reserves. The remark from a top U.S. official on state media: this is a long-term gain because what we want to do is get such massive oil reserves in Iran out of the hands of terrorists. Ultimately, we're not going to have to worry about the challenges in the Strait of Hormuz because we're going to get all of the oil out of the hands of terrorists. Seize Iranian oil. That is the concept being debated openly on American television. Let it land for a second. The United States military does not now govern Iranian land. The Iranian government has not fallen. The Iranian military has not surrendered. The strait is blocked. $100 billion has already been spent. Civilian infrastructure, desalination facilities, oil refineries, and an elementary school have been hit. And the public-facing strategy is, we'll grab their oil. This is what a credibility breakdown looks like in real time. Not one spectacular moment, but a steady accumulation of claims that no longer link to reality. Now, what does this imply for you? If you are filling up your tank this week, you already know the answer. Oil prices are increasing. The shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz is not theoretical. The market was already putting in a risk premium on oil before the new escalation. According to data from Goldman Sachs quoted in the Financial Times, every week the Strait stays limited adds several dollars per barrel to global oil prices, pressure that flows directly and instantly into gasoline costs at the pump. If you have a retirement account, watch it. The oil industry is volatile in both ways right now. Some manufacturers gain from high pricing, others are subject to supply chain disruption. The wider market has not completely priced in a lengthy battle with no apparent exit route since, as of this recording, the official American view is still that this will finish fast. When that assumption is revised, and it will be, the repricing will be swift. If you reside in a place where oil employment are concentrated, Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, the short-term picture seems like a bonanza. Higher petroleum prices imply more drilling income. But the long-term volatility in Gulf shipping lanes impacts refinery inputs, LNG export capacity, and the whole downstream supply chain in ways that are not yet fully obvious. And if you have any exposure to defense contractors, Raytheon, Lockheed, Northrop, the $100 billion amount given by the Iranian foreign minister, even if only partly correct, tells you something about the speed of military spending occurring right now. None of this is abstract. It is already in action. The question is how far it goes. I see two routes from here. There is no middle way anymore. Path 1. A back-channel bargain emerges. The Omani mediation track, typically the quietest and most effective route between Washington and Tehran, develops a framework. Iran agrees to a suspension of attacks on Gulf facilities. The U.S. agrees to stop attacks against Iranian civilian infrastructure. The strait partly reopens. Oil prices stabilize. Both parties announce victory to home audiences and begin the tedious grinding process of bargaining. This option needs the Trump administration to accept anything less than absolute Iranian capitulation, which implies accepting something that contradicts what the president has already declared publicly. That is a huge political challenge, but not insurmountable. Pragmatism frequently develops when financial cost becomes evident. Path 2. The spiral. Iran assaults U.S. naval installations in the Persian Gulf, either directly or via proxies. The U.S. retaliates on Iranian military command infrastructure. One Gulf state suffers a strike serious enough to require an official military reaction. Iraqi legislative discourse becomes militia action. The Houthis, Lebanese factions, Iraqi groups, the whole axis operates simultaneously. The strait shuts entirely. Oil hits levels that begin to fundamentally undermine the global economy, and the United States finds itself in the type of multi-front, open-ended Middle Eastern conflict that many American voters clearly wish to avoid. The foreign minister expressed it plainly. The American people decided to halt expensive quagmires in the Middle East. Instead, they ended up with a government that, in his opinion, Netanyahu finally managed to draw into fighting Israel's conflicts. Is that true? Is it spin? Is it someplace in between? That is for you to determine. But what is not spin is the $100 billion. What is not spin is the closed strait. What is not spin is the primary school in Bandar Abbas. What is not propaganda is death to America on the floor of the Iraqi parliament. Those are the facts being offered here, and they point in one way. Here is what I know for certain. Every assumption the Trump administration made at the outset of this campaign has now been tested against reality, and every single one has come up short. The government did not fall. The populace did not rebel. The leadership was not devastated. The conflict did not finish in days. Oil prices did not decline. Neighboring states are not stable. And the Iranian state, whatever its numerous flaws, has proved that it can maintain military retaliation while creating regional disruption at the same time. That is not winning. That is not even stalemate. That is an emerging strategic failure being handled in real time via conflicting official narratives, none of which entirely agree. We have seen variations of this before, not at this size, not with these stakes, but we know what happens when a military operation founded on erroneous assumptions meets a determined foe with nothing left to lose. The consequences are never clean. They are never fast. And the folks who pay the price are virtually never the individuals who made the choices. 3 questions to leave with you. Is Trump stopping a threat or setting circumstances for a generation of new ones? When the financial cost for this conflict arrives, at the pump, in your portfolio, in the government deficit, who will be held accountable? If Iran's foreign minister is properly portraying a $100 billion cost, a blocked strait, and a war U.S. intelligence warned would fail, what precisely was the plan? Leave your responses in the comments. Hit like if this provided you something mainstream coverage is not providing you. Subscribe to Daily Brief if you want to keep ahead of this story as it develops. Turn on alerts since stuff is evolving rapidly and the next development might happen within hours. We'll be here every day, every development, no spin, just the entire picture.